It's the International Soccer Preview. We are Soccerphiles Canada. Welcome to Series 31, looking at the groups and teams of the 2025 African Cup. This episode is looking at Group A, Morocco, Mali, Zambia, and Comoros. Here we go! It's the International Soccer Preview by Soccerphiles Canada. It's Series 31, and I'm Kevin.
And I'm Connor. And today we're looking at Group A for the 2025 African Cup Tournament. This group is made up of Morocco, Mali, Zambia, and Comoros.
We move on to part 3, more of a direct comparison of the teams. And let's begin with the pots that they came from.
Yeah, so there were 4 pots. Morocco as hosts were kind of the top seed in pot 1, though I actually think on FIFA rankings they would have been anyways.
I think so too.
Mali were the second ranked team in pot 2, so that puts them as kind of like a top 8 team in the tournament. Zambia were third in pot 3, and Comoros were Comoros were second in pot 4. So all these teams came from the top half of their pots, which shows kind of the teams grouped with them that they're relatively strong of the teams that could have been drawn out of the hat.
Yeah, and by that accounting, that would make this the toughest group, I would say, by far.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, those are the pots. Let's move on to their current rankings. These are actually the rankings for, I think, October 17th, the most recent rankings.
Yeah. So Morocco are 12th in FIFA and 23rd in ELO. 12th is a tremendous achievement for Morocco, buoyed by their World Cups of 2022 still. Mali are 53rd in FIFA and 59th in ELO. Zambia are 87th in FIFA and 109th in ELO, so a bit of a discrepancy there. And then Comoros are 112th in FIFA and 108th in ELO. So the most interesting thing there is that in FIFA has Zambia about 30 spots higher than Comoros, but ELO puts them basically on par with Comoros 1 spot ahead.
Yeah, well, I mean, this could be the starting point of our discussion, but we have a couple of other things to look at. But yourself, which would you tend to agree with there, the FIFA or the ELO?
Yeah, I think the one Morocco's ranking, I think they are incredibly strong. For Zambia and Comoros, Zambia are such an inconsistent team that it's tough to say. Probably on recent form, I would agree with ELO in that I think they're perhaps closer than FIFA has them. Yeah,
well, we're getting into our discussion there. I just want to point out that in 2015, Morocco were ranked 92nd by FIFA, so this really is a strong period for them.
Yeah.
Okay, and of course, Comoros have risen. Well, in 2015, they were 172nd, so both of those teams in the form of their lives, really. Next thing we're going to look at is head-to-head records among these teams, beginning with Morocco versus Mali.
So this is actually pretty close. Morocco has 4 wins. They've tied 3 times, and Mali has won twice.
Yeah, so a close record there. They met in 2018 World Cup qualifying, and actually Morocco humiliated Mali in the first leg, winning 6-0, and they tied 0-0 in the second leg. But again, we do know Morocco or Mali is a different team in World Cup play, much weaker.
Yeah.
Next, we have Morocco versus Zambia.
Morocco has won 9 of 15 meetings. They've tied once, and Zambia has won 5.
Yeah, so they have actually a fairly even record over history up until 1998. Then from 1998 to 2023, they didn't meet, but they have met 3 times since 2023, Morocco winning all 3 of those. So that's kind of giving them the edge in what would otherwise be a fairly even record.
Yeah.
On we go to Morocco versus Comoros. So we see Morocco has the superior record against all three of these teams.
Yeah, and I'll just correct it there. Morocco has 2 wins from 3 games, and they've
Oh,
tied once.
good, thank you. Nice catch there. Yes, so Morocco 2-1-0 there. They first met in 2019, so all of those results are equal. But we do see that Morocco did manage to get a draw with them there in 2019.
Yeah.
Next, we look at Mali. Mali's record versus Comoros.
And this was newly established in 2026 World Cup qualifying. Mali winning both games, though.
Yeah, I'm winning them both 3-0, so a pretty convincing recent record there.
Yeah, the recency of that makes it directly relevant, you would feel.
Yeah, definitely. Well, it's Zambia who actually have the better record or the better head-to-head with Mali.
Yeah, they've won 2 games and they've tied once. Mali yet to beat Zambia in a competitive match.
Yes, but they haven't met since 2006, so that is not really that relevant. And finally, we look at Zambia versus Comoros.
Yeah, so Zambia has won 3 and they've tied once in recent play.
Right, and well, their first meeting was in 2012. That was a great year for Zambia, winning both legs there. 2023, we saw that campaign again. Zambia had a bit of a high point, a bit of a spike in their form. Nevertheless, Comoros managed to get a draw. So we can see in almost every case, each team has taken points off the other, with the exception of Mali versus Comoros. Okay, the last thing we did, you know what I did here, Connor? Rather than comb the betting sites, I just asked AI to tell me the answer, and this is what they came up with. These are the odds to win the group.
All right. Well, Morocco's given 61% chance. Mali 26%, Zambia half of that at 13, and Comoros 5% chance.
Yeah, and that'll be maybe our starting point for the discussion. But I do want to point out that doesn't add up to 100%, so I'll have to criticize. I don't know if it's supposed to add up to 100%, but
well, AI is not perfect, as we all
yes, I question the AI on that. But I think we saw in the ELO rankings that Zambia and Comoros were fairly close. This looks a bit more like the FIFA rankings, with Zambia almost 3 times the chance of passing the group, winning the group, than Comoros. So maybe we'll just ask if you. Well, we should start with Morocco. Let's see if you agree with the 61% odds given to Morocco.
I do, and I would put it higher. I mean, we can't forget that they're playing at home here as well, which is an advantage. They are the hosts. I think Morocco is very likely to win this group. I think they, the players they can pull from, their imperious qualifying campaigns, their great run in the World Cup. I think they're the clear favorites to win this group. I would be quite surprised, frankly, to see anything otherwise. But what do you think?
Well, I do want to ask you if you think if there's any danger of them being a bit complacent with that, because they do have such a good record. We saw Ivory Coast last time. Well, we don't know what happened with Ivory Coast, but let's say they took the group stage for granted because they were hosts. Do you think there's any danger of Morocco doing that here?
I think Morocco will be aware of the Ivory Coast example as something to avoid. I think it could happen. I think Morocco is a team that will look to try and win the tournament or at least go very far. So I do feel with some great teams, they kind of start thinking, maybe are looking down the road. I mean, you could even say Argentina in the last World Cup, they lost to Saudi Arabia. Maybe they got complacent and start thinking about the knockout stage before they're there. So it can happen. We've seen teams do that before, but I think being at home will probably help Morocco stay a little bit more focused and determined to give the fans what they want, even in the group games.
Well put. I mean, the fans who will be sitting in the stadium behind where you are recording this from.
Yes, that's right. Live from the from Rabat.
Right. Yeah, I gotta say, I agree with you. I do think there is a danger, particularly with these teams. I think Mali, Zambia, and Comoros are all kind of dangerous spoiler teams to Morocco. But as you say, I think Morocco will be aware of it. They're at home. I mean, unlike Ivory Coast, which came into their last World Cup having finished second in their qualifying group, Morocco has been imperious. So we see that they don't falter in qualifying even when they play weak teams. So I think that stands in their favor. And I think they have a lot to play for here. Perhaps in previous African Cups, they haven't really put their best foot forward. But because they're hosts here and because they don't have a great African Cup record, even given the strength that they're at right now, I think this is the time and the place for them to make their mark in African Cup history.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. Well, how likely do you think it is that Morocco will win the whole thing, or what do you think will be a good result that they would be satisfied with?
I think whenever you're at home, you want to go far. They come in as not only the host, but as the #1 ranked team in Africa. Still buoyed by the World Cup results. They have a young team, and they've kept a lot of core players. I think they'll expect to win it, and they would be my favorites to win it. I see them getting to the final and would be my the team I would back to win it all.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the only thing I could see them not being disappointed is maybe a spectacular final where they lose narrowly or something like that. Otherwise, I think they'd be disappointed even with a semi-final exit from this competition.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, well, what about Mali? A really interesting difference there between World Cup and African Cup play. And we saw that they didn't really bring it to their recent World Cup campaign. I don't know if you had that in mind when you talked about momentum. Is that perhaps bringing negative momentum into this cup?
Yeah, I mean, frankly, until we had this conversation, I was kind of less aware of Mali's kind of dichotomy of being so strong in African Cups and so weak in World Cup play by comparison. Looking at the recent World Cup results, I would say that does work against them. But keeping in mind it is a World Cup and they're a much stronger African Cup team, I think momentum is a little bit harder to suss out for them.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I gotta say, I really don't think they'll be affected by the momentum because they've always been pretty poor in World Cup play, and it really hasn't affected their African Cup play. So I would say, the momentum from the previous African Cup probably plays a bigger role than the momentum from the World Cup. It's just so dichotomized there.
Yeah. Yeah, and they did well in the last cup, a narrow quarterfinal loss. So, yeah, they'll have ambitions, of course, to go far in this tournament.
Yeah. How likely do you think they are to finish second? I don't think this 26% really speaks to that. It's a 26% chance of winning the group, and I'd agree. It is a bit lower. But the second team will pass perhaps even the third team. How likely do you think Mali is, or do you think they can be challenged by those teams below?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned this is an interesting group, and you can elaborate on that more. I think they're open to challenges, to Zambia and Comoros, who, if those are teams that get hot and can pull off stunning results, and Mali could be the victim of that. I see it less likely happening against Morocco, though I think a tie is possible. So when you look at their recent results, they beat Comoros 3-0 home and away just over the last couple months. So certainly getting out of the group stage in second or third, I think, is very likely. But it's possible that they don't do it. I think the African Cup, more than other tournaments, sometimes has surprise teams doing well and surprise teams doing poorly. And I don't know. I fear Mali could perhaps do poorly, just given the disappointment of their World Cup campaign.
Yeah, I'm always a bit tentative making predictions because I mean it's almost comical how we sit here and we basically generally agree with the rankings or the general strength of the teams, and then we find Tunisia finishing last in the group or Ghana not passing the group stage, and it kind of makes me look back and wonder if our podcast or our media cast here makes any sense at all. That randomness does make it more interesting.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, I'm not going to sit here, even though I do think Zambia and Comoros can be a threat to Mali. I'm not going to sit here and argue the case. I think we all know that it could happen and that the group could be turned upside down. But to actually predict it and say, I think that's going to happen is too much. We saw that Zambia is kind of a team that spikes, so they may or they may not. Comoros is a team that can challenge stronger teams. They may or they may not. I don't think there's enough justification to say that we think they will. But of course, we wouldn't be surprised if it happens.
Yeah, I think the World Cup and or FIFA and ELO rankings are pretty instructive. Mali are considerably behind Morocco, but also considerably ahead of the other two. So, like you said, it'd be difficult to predict anything other than second, because that's really what the odds here and the rankings point to.
Yeah. Okay, I think we're fairly agreed that Mali is the favourite to win second, even though we wouldn't be shocked if they didn't. How are we going to talk about Zambia and Comoros? We could get into the mathematics of how third place works, but generally, if it's a tight group, the third place team doesn't pass. But let's say one team loses all three games, then the mathematics works out often that the third place team will pass.
Essentially, you need a win. About 4 of the 6 third place teams will get a victory. And if you get a victory, you're probably through. But yeah, without it, it becomes very difficult. I guess I'll ask you, yeah. Kev, do you see them like ELO as very neck and neck, or do you see them like FIFA with Zambia further ahead?
I think Zambia has a. I gotta say, I think I agree with Elo more on that because Zambia is kind of unpredictable. We know that they could be strong enough to beat Mali if they're on form, but I don't know if it came out clearly in the history. But Zambia is much less often on form than they actually are. You look at a string of group stage exits in the cup, and you don't want to kind of fall into thinking that they regularly spike up with strong performances. So it's hard to say, but I mean, Comoros somehow looks a bit more solid than Zambia, whereas Zambia looks a bit more hot and cold. Would you agree with that?
I would agree with you. I think, Comoros, there's not much to pick apart in their recent qualifying campaigns. A stunning campaign for this tournament, going undefeated, and then performing quite well in what was a difficult group in World Cup qualifying. But winning 5 games shows them as capable. It's like, they can score goals, they can defend well. If we talk about momentum as we introduce the podcast, I see them as the team with a bit more of it. So yeah, they're the smaller country, they're the underdogs, but I see them as close, and I maybe prefer Comoros to finish third.
Yeah, I wouldn't completely disagree with you there. Definitely, I don't think it's what we see on the screen here. Zambia 13% chance to Comoros is 5, or almost 3 times as likely than Comoros. I would put them at least close together. As you say, teams are going to have a win, and of course, one of them, let's say, wins over each other. Do you think they can take points from Morocco and Mali to make it happen?
I don't think they'll take points from Morocco. I could see Morocco winning three from 3. I think Morocco are that good and have the home advantage. I do see points from Mali potentially. I'm very curious to see how those games will play out. I think there'll be close games. I think the games between Mali, Zambia, and Comoros will be competitive. And yeah, a point there could prove valuable to one of these teams finishing third and getting out of the group.
Yeah. Well, one thing I do want to point out here is the order of matches, because I think it might be significant that Zambia maybe have a bit of an advantage playing Morocco in the third game, because it could be that Morocco wins their first two and then fields a B team for the third game. I mean, the odds are probably pretty low of that, and even if Morocco do field a weaker team, they'll still be tough to beat. But do you see anything in that?
Yeah, I mean that can always happen. Obviously for Zambia, you their best situation is Morocco having it feel having a nothing game to end with. I think Mali Zambia is a big game. That's the in the first round. That's a chance for either of those teams to get off on a good footing.
Yeah.
The teams that lose, if a team loses, they'll be making up ground. So, and then Zambia, Comoros, that's for each of those teams. That's their must-win game if they want to advance. They'd love to take points off Mali, I'm sure, but that's the game they really have to win to get out of the group.
All right. Well, unless you have anything else to add, I want to ask you what you think. We've talked about it in terms of Morocco, what you think teams would be satisfied with as an end result here. Comoros, I'm pretty sure, would be pretty happy to pass the group stage. What do you think for Mali and Zambia?
I think Zambia would have to be happy getting out of the group stage too. They could go in as a third place team and end up with a difficult match. Even a second place team could get a difficult match. I think they've struggled against some of the top teams, perhaps Ivory Coast aside. So I think both those teams would be happy to get out of the group. Comoros, having got out of the group in their only other tournament, would obviously like to do at least as well. And then for Mali, I think the quarterfinals is probably a place they could end their tournament. They'd like to go further. They've been to semifinals before, but I don't see that as particularly likely.
Yeah, not particularly likely, but they are a team, and Zambia, to an extent, are a team that once they get beyond the group stage, they tend to outperform themselves. So it'll be kind of interesting. But I do agree with you in terms of expectation. It would be a tremendous result for Mali, say, to get to the semifinals, or for Zambia and Comoros to get to the quarterfinals. Yeah, well, a pretty interesting group. Do you have anything you want to add?
Not really. I think it will be interesting. I think for Morocco, they're going to try and use the group to set the stage for a deep run in the tournament. And I think the other ones, if there is going to be an unpredictable group, maybe this is it. So we'll see.
Yeah. How would you feel if you were Comoros playing Morocco in that opener?
I think that's just a game you get through. The hosts want to win. I mean, maybe you're on the big stage in the opening game, but that's a tough start to the tournament for Comoros.
Definitely. Well, great. Good talking to you about this, Connor, and looking forward to see how it all turns out. Once we get, we'll probably find that everything we said here is for nothing.
Yeah, Morocco finishes last. We'll see.
Right. Well, we'll see you for Group B.
See you then.
We would like to thank Pixabay and Cold Fingers for the wonderful music used in this media cast. The title of the piece is Eid Mubarak.